The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek episode 70.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Make it so. Surrender is not an option.
Attention crew of the Enterprise, this is James Kirk.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We would have helped you get home if you had asked. That's who Starfleet is.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the Enterprise episode, Terra Nova. Joining me today on the panel are Father Corey Stika. Hi, Father Corey.
How's it going?
Very well. And Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, remember to like The Secrets of Star Trek on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Retweet the episodes on Twitter, where we're at SQPN, and leave us comments. That all helps to get the show out to a larger audience and brings people in, and especially when we have a great episode like this one that we're about to talk about. This is Terra Nova we're discussing. It's not the one-season Fox Network show about an alternate world with dinosaurs and people. No, this is a Enterprise episode from October 2001. Again, the first season of Enterprise. And the basic plot is the lost colony of Roanoke. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Now, I got to say right up front, so Brandon Braga was the executive producer of Enterprise, and you know the guy in charge of all things Star Trek at Paramount at the time. And later on, years later, would say this was the worst episode of Enterprise. That he found it boring.
That's clearly not the case. There are much worse episodes than this.
Yeah.
This is not a great episode, but it's not the worst.
Yeah, now that's his opinion. He thought this was the worst. Of course, he didn't write this, so it might be that something he wrote was the worst episode.
Well, A Night in Sick Bay and the finale are both real good candidates for horrible, much worse than this episode. I have in my notes, my very first note on this episode is mostly harmless.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
Well, that's the thing. There's nothing surprising in this episode. Nothing really happens. There's no real revelations. We don't have anything really all that. I mean, it's sort of paint by numbers, right?
Paint by numbers is another of my notes. Yes. Especially the ending. It's this paint by numbers ending where so they come to this world that was a former colony of Earth that was set up 70 something years ago. And they lost contact with the colony, and it turns out that the people are living underground because there was a comet or asteroid that slammed into the northern hemisphere of the planet and irradiated the northern hemisphere, so the people had to live underground. And only the young children survived, and so they grew up not trusting humans from Earth because their parents had been dissidents. And they don't even identify as humans. And so when the humans on Enterprise show up, there's this immediate hostility. And eventually we have to overcome the hostility by having our characters put in dangerous situations where they have to trust each other. In fact, at one point, Archer even says, now it's your turn to trust me. Right. And it's just a paint by numbers Star Trek empathy reconciliation plot. Right.
But the only thing really interesting about it is just the ideas of the first human colonists with early warp drive. It talks about how it took them 9 years each way. So but they really don't explain, is that at warp 1, which means it's 9 light years from Earth, or is it warp 2, which it's more exponential, or the speeds go up from there.
Well, it was 20 light years away.
Yeah, they said it was less than 20 light years away. Yeah. So presumably that's warp 2 or something.
Yeah, because we know it's post-Vulcan first contact. So we know at least humans have warp drive, but again, very early warp drive technology.
This is the part of the premise that really kind of I had a hard time dealing with. So I like the idea. Again, I agree with you. I like the idea of the first humans to colonize deep space. They had already colonized the moon. They'd already colonized Mars, but this was, let's go out into the deep. And like you said, it took 9 years to get there, which, it's essentially a generation ship. Not exactly a generation, but it's that idea of a long-term spaceship. And they've been out of contact for 70 years. And the Terra Novans were 70, yep. And the Terra Novans were so angry that Earth wanted to send a couple hundred more people to their planet. It's our planet. It's a planet. If a couple hundred more people were on the other side of the planet from you, you'd never know they were there.
Exactly.
Well, and actually, if you've only got a couple hundred people, you have a severe population bottleneck. You actually would be wanting those for the stability of your gene pool in future generations.
The other problem I have is in all this time, 70 years, no one's gone back. Because they've developed faster starships, certainly. I mean, I know Enterprise is now the fastest one, but the Enterprise can get there in what, maybe weeks, months at most. Other Earth ships are out in deep space, like Mayweather's family. They're out there doing all this trading. It just felt like I just didn't buy that. Like, it didn't take Enterprise years to get there, so presumably ships have been going much faster since then, and that was hard to stomach.
I also had trouble with the part of the premise that the colony is lost in a mysterious way, because even if a comet slams into or an asteroid or whatever it was slams into the northern hemisphere of the planet, there should be automated systems in orbit. There should be a satellite system that would relay information about this back to Earth. So it shouldn't have been a mystery. And I also have note to self: bring asteroid defense system when colonizing other worlds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that is kind of interesting, because perhaps I didn't think about that, but it's true that if nothing else, for communication back to Earth, you would think they would have had, their land station, their land transmitter that would transmit to a satellite that would then shoot off into deep space, versus doing it locally. Just doing it like one big transmitter that blasts into space.
Right, and in fact, like they said, there was something in the transmitter buffer that was, still in there after 7. That's quite a buffer that they get there. It still hasn't degraded after 7 years. Actually, I have to say, from the beginning, I was thinking this will be like a Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World when we're still around in like our heads in bottles in 200 years. The lost colony of Terra Nova. What are a little trivia fact? It's one of 9 Star Trek episodes with Latin names.
Okay.
So Terra Nova
means New Earth in Latin. Yeah.
Sub Rosa, Dramatis Personae, Inter Arma Enim Silent Leges. My Latin pronunciation is great.
Okay, so let's back up and translate these as we go. So Sub Rosa is under the rose. It's used as a phrase for secrecy.
Yep. Dramatis Personae is a literary term for
the persons of the drama.
Yep. Inter Arma Enim Silent Leges.
In time of war, the law falls silent.
Yeah, that was a Deep Space Nine episode. Ex post facto.
After the fact.
Yeah. Non sequitur.
Doesn't follow in sequence.
Yeah. Alter ego.
Another I.
Vox sola.
One voice.
Yeah. And si vis pacem parabellum.
If you want to see peace, prepare for war.
All right, excellent. Yes, so so that, and then this one is Terra Nova, which means New Earth, which is would we name our first deep space colony the New Earth? I think that would make sense.
I like some of the planet names in Larry Niven's Known Space. Like there's a planet called We Made It.
Well, I look at the names of certain places, like in Australia and New Zealand. They had a sense of humor when naming places. In fact, one of our patrons,
Sydney. I mean, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Actually, I was thinking one of our new patrons, which we mentioned at the end of the show, is they're from Stamping Ground, Kentucky.
Oh yeah,
which I just like I just want to know where that name comes from.
Well, you got to remember too is I'm living in the town of Malta, Montana. It was named for the island, not because we have people from Malta, the island of Malta, who sailed here. No, the railroad spun a globe and tapped it, and where the finger laid, that's where the town got named.
Oh, really?
And
Wow.
so it landed on the island of Malta.
That's funny.
So
I once drove through Yeehaw Junction, Florida, and I've been through Cut and Shoot, Texas, which is just north of Houston, and I've been to Two Guns, Arizona, and quite a number of interesting places like that.
Father Corey, you could have lived in Dar es Salaam or
Ooh,
Exactly.
yeah, Dar
had
es
all
Salaam,
kinds
Montana.
of names. All right, so
House of Peace.
we are definitely off track here. So
let's say something nice about this episode. Archer has one of the best lines of all time at the beginning of the episode. He walks onto the bridge and says, "Are we there yet?"
yeah.
Yes.
That was great.
Yeah. So one of the things, okay, so let's get back to things I didn't like. I don't like this conceit of children who grow up without adults developing this whole other jargon. Like we've seen that before. That's not really original. The don't track back. They live on the overside and you speak in shale. I just don't. It's hard to buy that.
I didn't have a problem with initially I'm thinking I like the fact that they've developed this alternative language, because in isolated communities languages take different directions, so they wouldn't be speaking perfect English or standard English. They'd be speaking a modified version. My question was, it's only once they said it's been 70 years, I'm going, there's no way that the language would diverge that far in 70 years. And then they added, but nobody over the age of 5 survived.
Right.
And that made it more plausible, because linguistically, when you have sudden shifts in a language, it's the youth that does it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Linguistics is one of my hobbies. And you really can, in just a generation or two, have a big flip in a language. And that's with adults around. So if you take all of the adults out of the picture, I could imagine a language flip happening in the 3 generations that they've been living underground.
So there was an original series episode where only the children survived on an Earth analog planet.
Miri.
Miri, that's right. But they were like preteens and teenagers. Okay, so by that, I've had 5 now, 4 and 5-year-olds. They're obviously they've grown.
Mm-hmm.
How do they survive?
That's the bigger question. How do they survive at all?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if they could live in the settlement, that would be one thing. If these 4 and 5-year-olds lived in the houses with the equipment and the technology, but there are 4 and 5-year-olds who have to go underground and live and survive. I have a hard time believing this is even possible.
Yeah, it's really implausible, and it's not the only really implausible thing in this episode.
Yes,
I thought that initially when they meet these people, so they live underground and they have all this clay face painting, and they wear these clothing made out of the skins of an animal called diggers, which are kind of like armadillo turtles or something.
Yeah,
and when they get a glimpse of them in the woods, Malcolm says they're about 2 meters tall, generally humanoid, but have odd scales. And even after they see them up close, and it's clear they just have clay on their faces as face paint, they're not realizing they're humans. And I'm going, how are you not realizing these people are humans?
Yeah.
And to Paul, who's been using a tricorder, is the one to say, actually, they're not aliens, they're humans. And it's like that was obvious to me as soon as I saw them.
Well, in a galaxy full of aliens with bumpy heads,
I still didn't ring true.
Right.
That's clay, not latex on their heads. And then once they realize they're humans, everyone is shocked at the fact they were hostile. Mayweather has this line. He says, "I don't get it. If they're human, why were they shooting at us?" And it's like, what a naive century you are living in, dude, where humans never are aggressive towards other humans. I mean, don't you remember what happened like 100 years ago? There was a huge, massive war.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's these people, when they meet them, they immediately attack the Enterprise crew. And it's like, okay, wow, these people are all going totally North Sentinelese. I mean, we have these uncontacted people here on Earth who will try to kill anybody that visits them. Mm-hmm. And this is just another example of that. Mayweather, you should know this.
Right.
But apparently everything is so perfect so quickly after World War III that the concept of humans being aggressive towards other humans is unthinkable and shocking.
That kind of came up last week when we were talking about the Cloud on Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mention it at the time, but Kim has this line where he talks about visiting France or visiting Paris, and Tom Paris tells him, "Oh yeah, they even have pickpockets. Pickpockets on Earth, like as if like no one ever commits any crime on Earth anymore. It's just they do it for
everything's
the
absolutely perfect once the Federation was founded, and there's no crime, and everybody lives together in peace and harmony, and
human nature has been changed irrevocably." Sure.
by the way, and in such a way that you lose all memory of the past.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Also, speaking of implausible things, these guys are using machine guns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where are they getting the bullets? You know, where
apparently there's still stockpiles from the colony that lasted for 70 years. Apparently,
yeah,
or maybe a 5-year-old knows how to reload ammo, or knew how to. Yeah.
Another implausibility.
Right. Who set the broken limbs? Who cured the diseases? Yeah. So what we have is it turns out that the oldest member of this group of Terra Novans is a woman named Nadette, and it turns out she is presumably the only surviving original child survivor of the original colony.
She's 75 years old, so she was 5 at the time of the disaster. Her original name was Bernadette.
Yes.
And as soon as they say that gives you the key to not just her name, but all of the names in the group. None of them are named things like, Fierce Digger or something like that after anything in their environment. They are all Earth names that have had the first part of the name circumcised. So Bernadette becomes Nadette, Benjamin becomes Jamin, and Zachary becomes Achary. He's the guy that gets trapped under the tree.
Because 5-year-olds don't know their own names. So Archer ends up, showing her a picture of her family, and she and her son, they think, okay, this is all just lies and attempts for to take over our colony. And I'm thinking to myself, like, obviously these people have more advanced technology than you. If they wanted what you have, they would take it from you. I mean, it's just. Yeah. They wouldn't need to trick you into it. Of course, Phlox then finds a reason why the Novans can't stay where they are, because there's not only is there radiation on the surface, they're also in the caves where they've been living. They're susceptible to some disease.
Well, the water supply has become contaminated by the radiation.
Right.
And so it's like maybe we should forcibly move them back to Earth or move them to another continent. I'm going, why not give them a water filter?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. T'Pol sort of makes this interesting reverse argument, reverse psychology argument on Archer in this one scene where she says, well, just take them forcibly and bring them home and, re-educate. And Archer's like, you can't, re-educate these people. You can't just take them and plop them back into Earth. And she's like, yeah, that's right. So you have to help them where they are. I think that's her argument. And so, that returning them to Earth would only do violence to them, further violence. Right. And that's when they finally figure out, well, maybe we could move to a different place on the planet.
Because conveniently, the southern hemisphere didn't get any fallout, and there must be really fierce winds around the equator to keep that from happening.
Right. And then, of course, so they then have to return this woman who had been treated for cancer. Phlox had treated her for lung cancer that he discovered.
Yeah. Now, this is nice. I like the fact that, okay, she's got a disease, and it's not space cancer.
It's just good old-fashioned,
She's got lung cancer, and yes, people get that even if they don't smoke. Maybe especially if you've been breathing in radioactive air from your hemisphere for 75 years.
Yeah.
But he says it's easily treated and it's just going to take a few hours. And they go back up, they bring her back up to the ship. He runs a bunch of tests. She kind of freaks out in the MRI machine because it's a little tight, although she lives underground. Why she's claustrophobic, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought we should have seen, some freakouts as soon as they get on the shuttle to fly up. I mean, there's going to be atmospheric turbulence on the way up.
Exactly.
Right.
That would be freaking out worthy for people who live in solid underground places and have never been in the air before.
Right. Not to mention like being high up above the ground. That would probably be pretty freaky.
Yeah. But he gives her a series of injections and cures her lung cancer in a few hours, and I think that's awesome.
And
and believable by the 22nd century.
Yes. Yeah. Then of course when they return, we kind of alluded to this. As the shuttle pod lands, it falls through a sinkhole, and then of course
suddenly Jimin is totally claustrophobic, and the shuttle is like, "Open it up, open it up, open it up."
Right. I gotta get out.
See, that's more the reaction you would expect to have gotten for the flight up was,
right.
Make the stop, gotta get out of here.
And in the process of like going, getting out of the shuttle. I'm not sure why the whole shuttle pod falling through the ground thing was a part of. I'm not sure what that added to the story.
It creates an emergency situation where Jimin and Archer have to work together and thus have to trust each other, and it overcomes it's part of the paint by numbers empathy reconciliation plot.
And it pads the story that was probably way too short to begin with, so they had to add something to it.
Right, because the whole part of where they discover the Nova named Akari, who had been fallen in a well. Timmy's in the well and he needs Lassie to get him out. That whole thing was that we have to trust each other to save someone, work together, and build trust, and then so magically we're all friends again afterward. So the whole time, so Akari is in this well as it's filling, because of course, and so that puts a time limit on how fast they have to work. He's under this giant log, and they're trying to lift it. I'm going, that phase pistol in your pocket probably could help.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, hey, they figured out how I can blast it with a phase pistol, and it will make it easier to lift. So of course. And then, of course, after that, then Jimin and Nadette convince everyone that we can trust the Sky People and we can move to a different place. As the episode finishes out, it's Archer, Tucker, T'Pol, and Mayweather eating in the captain's dining room.
Yeah, it's like, when does Mayweather rate being in the captain's dining room?
I think because this is when Archer's going to ask him to write the report for Starfleet.
Okay.
Because he's a big mystery guy. But Mayweather brings up the other unsolved mysteries, including Judge Crater and Amelia Earhart, which...
both of which will be on Mysterious World in the future, yes. Thank you, everyone, for asking.
So Judge Crater, I was going to ask that. I didn't look it up, but Judge Crater is a real mystery, right?
Oh, yeah. He was a judge that vanished in the first part of the 20th century.
Okay. Amelia Earhart, of course, in the Star Trek universe, we know that gets solved in the 22nd. It was still unsolved in the 22nd century, but gets solved in the 24th century because Amelia Earhart was kidnapped by aliens and taken to the Delta Quadrant, where Voyager will find her. Although, if you listen to Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World in October, I'm not sure if this is coming up before or after it, but very soon around when this comes out, you'll listen to what Jimmy has to say about the mysterious disappearance.
Spoiler, it's not aliens.
It's not aliens.
Ah, darn it.
Darn it. I always say it's always aliens.
Maybe she's trapped in Area 51 with all the aliens. No.
Yes. I keep telling people they don't hide stuff in Area 51. That's the one they tell us about. Never mind.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother show. So that's sort of where we wrap things up with this episode. Like you said at the beginning, Jimmy, we both said it's paint by numbers. There's nothing really.
Mostly harmless.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just a couple of final notes on it.
Uh-huh.
I did think they had good primitive set dressing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was nice. So good production values on that.
Mm-hmm.
We entirely blew past the fact that Malcolm gets hit with a machine gun bullet, and they keep him hostage for a while. Archer has this meltdown where it's like, if I can't make first contact with humans, I don't have any business being out here. And so then after that, he beams down unarmed to the people with machine guns that have been shooting you. It's like, how naive can you be?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it was nice to see Eric Avari as Jamin.
Yes.
Eric Avari is, if you're not familiar with the name, you may know his face because he's been in a lot of science fiction.
Yep.
He played a Vedic on Deep Space Nine, but he's more famous in my mind as Dr. Daniel Jackson's father-in-law on Stargate. He's Share's father.
Right. Right. Yep. He, as they say, he works. He's an actor who works. He's been in everything.
And you look at his IMDb listing, and it's just role after role after role, and it's all second level characters, supporting characters, characters that reoccur, but nothing like really. He's not like a front runner character.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's always nice to see him.
Yes.
Oh yes, he's a great actor.
Yeah, he does a good job. Excellent.
I do have one quick thing. I liked the fact they named their the ship, the colonist ship, the Conestoga.
Conestoga, yeah.
Conestoga, and of course, being in the West, that's a name that we're familiar with because a lot of the settlers use the Conestoga wagons to get to come west. Especially if you played Oregon Trail, you know that name well.
Yeah, that's right. I like the fact in the show where they said when they got the ship to the planet, the ship itself was disassembled and used to build a colony. Which kind of it betrays the mindset that they were going and not coming back. This was their mindset was to separate from Earth, and that I did like that part of it.
And they said it not just did they dismantle the ship, but it was designed to be dismantled so that it could form the colony. So that shows shrewd resource management.
And that's absolutely plausible that if when we start colonizing places like Mars, that's how they're going to design the ships.
Right. They're gonna send ships there that will then become the places that people live. Yep. Excellent. So we do have some feedback. I wanted to read from listener on our discussion of The Search for Spock, episode 66. The Masked Chicken sent a long email, which I will not read the entirety of. I have to say, he says at first, I have a few words.
If you great to hear from the chicken, though.
Yeah. He did mention that he's been a commenter on your blog for a long time, Jimmy. So So first, on the Genesis device, he says, the Genesis device acted by Khan seems to have obliterated his ship and the Mutara Nebula in favor of reforming the matter content into a planet. As such, this would create tremendous gravitational waves as the matter reintegrated, so the idea of instability in gravitational fields is highly plausible. In the earlier simulation video by Carol Marcus, the planet was simply overwritten, implying no substantial change in the center of mass, hence very small gravitational distortions. So it depends on the exact mechanism used by the Genesis device as to whether or not substantial gravitational field instabilities will result.
Okay, and for people who may wonder, yes, the Masked Chicken is a physicist, so I accept what he says on that. Although I had always understood just the planet to be overwritten rather than pulled together out of nebula matter.
Well, that was the original intent of the Genesis device, was to take a dead planet and overwrite it. That's why they're looking for planets to use it on.
Yeah,
originally.
And
because
what
apparently life is just crawling all over every rock out there.
That's right. Well, it was not just that it had to be dead, but that it had to fit within be in the Goldilocks zone and be of a particular, mass. And I think there was all these requirements, including not having any life on it. But yeah, it was a bit of a stretch. So the second comment he says is, in a mock time, Spock says, "I had hoped I would be spared the ancient drives, but eventually they catch up with you," implying that he had gone a number of cycles without giving into the Pon farr. Unlike the Genesis planet Spock, who had no higher faculties and was driven by instinct, original series Spock had a highly rational brain, so could exercise control to some extent. So it's likely that he did not experience an overwhelming urge starting in early adulthood, like the Genesis planet Spock did. This is further supported by his half-human parentage, which would blunt the effects of Pon farr to some extent, probably.
Okay.
So, that's a good response. And then he went into a very long explanation of some mathematical concepts that went over my head because I'm not that good at math. so I won't get into all that. But
send me the email.
Yeah. I thought you got the email. I'll make sure that you
it was good feedback.
He did send it to our our trek@sqpn.com email address. So that goes to all three of us, or it should anyway. So we'll double check that. So I think that does it for the moment. Before we finish out, I'd like to take a minute to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Tom C., Michael O., Francesc B., Kenny E., and James N. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of Terra Nova, the Enterprise episode that we just discussed? Let us know by visiting sqpn.com/trek or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. And you could also send us an email to trek@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the very long-named The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry, a first season... Yeah, that's right. The first season Discovery episode. Until then, Father Corey Stika, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
And thank you, Dom.
And Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, I'm not speaking shale.